Just a few pitloch to Hillam. Shalom Alois, Esayane Elrim, Yanya Voizri. Ezri, Madina, Yeseshamayim, Bodet. Al Yitela Modraglecha, Al Yonum, Shaimrecha. Yine lo Yonum, Velo Yishan Shomer, Yisrael. Adonai Shomerecha, Adonai Silcha, Yad Yiminecha. Yom Shemesh lo yakeka v'yareach v'alayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor seischa v'echa mi'ata v'yadei Shir malois mimankim kurzicha Adonai. Adonai shema b'koili tiana aznecha kashbaz l'koil tachnunai. Im avanes tishmar Adonai miyamoid. Ki imcha slicha leman tivarei. Ki visi Adonai ki v'sa nafshi v'lidvaroi ochalti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishamchim l'boiker shamirim l'boiker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai ki im Adonai achesed v'harbei mo fidus. V'hu yiftez Yisrael mikol avonosav. Rav Moshe Einstadter, Rav Torah Tefillah.
At the opening of Megillas Rus, the Torah tells us, "V'yom Elimelech ish Nomi." Now the Novi had just told us before that Naomi was married to Elimelech. Why is it repeated that V'yom Elimelech ish Nomi? From there, Chazal learn that an ish only dies for ishto. Ish is only mace for ishto. And in this marriage, no truer word has been said. That ish is only for ishto. And ish dies elo ishto. Chaim and Yita were married at an advanced age. Had gone through some things before. She in her way and he in his way. At a time in life, in that stage, all dreams have been extinguished, long gone by, and the dreams that have never materialized, never found fruition, will not find it anymore. That was not the case with this marriage. They had dreams, each had his own dream. That at that age, they should find fruition for their dreams was an absurdity and an impossibility. He, who had an idea that even at that age that he get married and that he'd be able to study Torah and advance in learning, which he had not an opportunity for in his younger years. And she, an unvoiced dream to marry a person whom she could devote herself to and who would rise in learning. So they met, they wed, and they dreamed. And they got married, and they dreamed on. They dreamed on, not separately, but together. The dream of an ideal marriage in which he would achieve his heights, and she would be able to devote it to him, to serve him in such a way to make it possible for him to live decently and to advance himself in his studies. And so they did. That dream became a reality. And Chaim was devoted to his wife for making his dream come true. And she was devoted to him, did everything she possibly could to make his dream come true. And so on they lived that way until tragedy struck. If this world were the be-all and end-all of all existence for us, then the tragedy would be unspeakable. But it's not so. The believing Jew knows that this is only preparatory. This is only a prose door for the actual true life that awaits one in the Olmos HaNeshamos. When the Netziv died, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Chavetz Chaim's Yeshiva, Moshe Vinsky, was sure that the Geula would come immediately, because the Netziv was such a Megan for Yisrael, a Melis for Yisrael. He was sure that the Geula would come, but it didn't come, and he became very depressed. Then someone told him, the Ari, in what was today's Shir Shal Yom, tells us, Diminu Elokim. We think Hashem Yisborach's judgment is stern and harsh, that his judgment is Elokim. But Chasdecha Bekerev Hecholecha. If one would come in Kerev Hecholecha, within the inner sanctity of Hashem Yisborach's abode, he would realize that it's all Chasodim. And then Rav Moshe Ladinsky was comforted. I say that to you too, Ita. You're suffering now very greatly, but realize it's Chasdecha Bekerev Hecholecha. The dreams you had are not shattered. They continue. And as you have been devoted to your husband during this life and make it possible for him to achieve what he achieved, now he is in a place that he can do even more for you. And he will do more for you. And the dream will go on. And it's a reality that will extend until we come to the world to come. So you should take comfort in the fact that this is only a preparatory stage. Eventually, you'll be united, and then you achieve everything you achieved in this world and so much more. There comes a time, and it will come soon, that Bila HaMoves LaNetzach, death, who is victorious in this world, will no longer be victorious. Mocha Hashem Elokim Dimo Me'al Kol Ponim.
Baruch Hirschfeld, Rosh Kael, Tara Lefkel.
I'd like to first start by thanking Mrs. Euzent for all the years of support we just heard about. Rav Chaim was a giant in Torah and Avodah and Gemilas Chasodim. Now I want to bring out some details of his Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasodim. But it was all Gemilas Chasodim. It was Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasodim, but he used out his Torah and used out his Avodah for Gemilas Chasodim. And I want to just bring out the Leiv Tov that he had. He was paid a little bit of money to take care of the Agudah Kollel building, and he did lifnai v'lifnei mishur sadin. What he did to keep the place clean, to make sure there was what to eat and to drink. The place should be vacuumed. For years and years, he did this. Lifnei mishur sadin. For about 20 years, from about Tov Nun Hey till about Tov Ayin Hey, come out all the chuppahs in the city, he put them up. He got a little bit of money, just a few pennies here and there. And with Mesiras Nefesh, he would go to where they were stored with his van, which is a Mishkan of Chesed, and he would take the poles and the chuppahs and the canopies and everything, and almost single-handedly put the thing up for hours and hours before the Simcha. And when the Simcha is over, everyone leaves the Simcha and just goes in to enjoy the Chasana meal. And who takes it apart? Chaim Euzent. Hours taking it apart, time after time. Tens and tens, maybe over 100, maybe more, of chuppahs he took care of single-handedly. I'm only got someone to help him. He got a bit older, he needs some help to put him up. But he used to take care of this for our community for about 20 years. There's another parsha called the Parsha of the Tapes. also about 22 years, from about Tavshin Nun Hey to about Tavshin Ayin Hey, he was recording any shurim that went on weekdays in our community, visitors, shurim, Sundays, night shurim, he was recording them and selling tapes, and hundreds of tapes were sold. People used to come to the Kotel for Mincha on the way from New York and Chicago back and forth, and used to see a table full of tapes and buy them. We got feedback of all sorts of tapes ending up all over the world from his tapes. And he took this very seriously. He made a few pennies here and there, but he was marbit. He felt this is the way of being marbit's Torah. He had his equipment. He knew how to do it. And for years and decades, he was marbit's Torah in this way, of giving people tapes of all the shiurim that were said in the community. And I'm going to give a few dugmois of his chesed. One time, I walk up to my house, and I see he's planting an arova bush in my front yard, making a bush for arovas. I couldn't. Why is he making a bush for arovas in the backyard? He had heard me talk about to somebody about how it's geschmack to have a arovas bush in your backyard. Just walk out and take care of them, use them for a mitzvah. And then he just heard me talk. I didn't mean anything, say anything. He just heard that. So he put it in a arovas bush. I used for many years. It was interesting. About 20 years ago, he put up a trampoline in my backyard. It was used by the family. And just last week, it just became not usable anymore. It's a Simona Miltzahi that he's run out. His Torah, those who knew him in the Koilul, it was exact learning, word by word, line by line. He has a chavrusa, a Baal Chaim Tovim. We know him, David Ramsey. He was in Montefiore. He was in Menor Park, just across the street from each other. And they were learning together for years and years, by phone and in person, and later on the phone. And his chavrusa told me that he took very seriously the Hadron Aloch. When you say in Masech, the Hadron Aloch, we'll be back to the Chazal you over again. He took this very seriously, he tells me. And he chazed Masechtas Megillah many, many times to know it well. He right now is in the middle of David Ramsey learning Masechtas Brachos for the second time. And he involved in Mitzvah. Those three Masechtas he learned and chazed. And he really knew, he mamish took this very seriously, day in, day out. He took his name very seriously. And David Ramsey tells me that every word was pronounced well, diktuk, havana, and clear systematic learning. We also, those who davened next to him, I davened right near to him, and for years and years he was davening word by word, not running, not skipping, saying the whole daven beginning to end with kavona, with mesinus, clear articulation. His Gemil's chasodim was, everybody in the community had something to gain from him. His van was used for all sorts of things, helping people move, helping people get this there, that there. You couldn't fit in the car, Chaim came with his van. You needed a sukkah to take it here and there, Chaim was there with his van. His chesed, his leif toiv just came out time after time for everybody in the community. He also was a big mevakesh. When the shir went on, whether it's in this shul, that shul, he was there to hear. He was a pillar of chesed. The Chavetz Chaim, in the beginning of Sefer Avos Chesed, brings down Yerushalmi, and the Tamtzis of Yerushalmi is that when tzaras come and kolo and tams chusavos, hachzik mitzvah chesed, grab onto chesed. Chesed is what carries Klal Yisrael through. I saw in one of the Sforim that we say in the first bracha of Shemini Esrei Avos, we first say Goimel Chasadim Tovim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's pumping Chasadim Tovim Keseda. Then it says, V'zoicher Chastei Avos, he remembers the Chastei Avos, Umevi Goel D'nei V'neihem. So the Sefer brings out, whenever a person says, Elikei Avram, Elikei Yitzchak, Elikei Yaakov, he should be thinking, Hashem, who's Elikei Avram, will be my God also if I go in Avram's ways. If I go in Yitzchak ways and Yaakov ways, Hashem will call his name on me. And that Chazal say, B'chol Chosmin. The Golus finishes with Chasodim. Chasodim will carry us through. Sometimes our Torah might be not matched up to the Dorsa before. Our Avodah might match up to the Dorsa before. But Gemilus Chasodim gets bigger and better as the Golus goes weiter. And these Gemilus Chasodim will carry us through. Chaim was a Avraham Avinu did chesed when it was hard. He was on the third day after Milah. He just had to do chesed. He was pouring chesed. Chaim, to the last ounce, he was doing chesed. And when he couldn't talk anymore, with his machinery, he figured out the way to talk with the machinery, with all the signs that he had and all the different things that he had. He was doing chesed from his bed. He was doing chesed. I would like to make a suggestion. I spoke yesterday, there's a very big Talmid Chacham in Monsey, V'yaina Yafeh, who was very close to Chaim, someone related to him, I think. And we spoke on the phone yesterday when we called Talmud about the Tira. And he said he's going to be able to say Kaddish, and I will be able to say Kaddish. But I'd just like to, we are his family. We are his family. And I'd like to suggest that all those who are Nehena from his Chasodim should be Makabel for the first year, that 3 minutes of their learning, they would learn anyways, just 3 minutes of our learning. So right now, dedicate 3 minutes of learning every day till Mitzvah, a year from now, Abba Leim L'Taiva, will go Lim Nishmosai. Mitzvah Hashem should be a male Tziyesha for his wife, and Lanu L'Chol Yisrael.
Reuven David Gerstian, Sgan Resh Kadal Torah Life.
Chazal describe a person, an elevated person, as someone who's shayif ayil, shayif nafik, v'loy machzik tevusah l'nafshei. Person who comes in quiet without a fuss, no entourage, leaves quietly, and he's done so much in between, and he holds nothing. Ein machzik tevusah l'nafshei. He's not looking for a plaque. He's not looking for recognition. He's not machzik tevusah. He did what he had to do. Reb Chaim Volozhiner says, Ha'adam lohoy la'achrini nivro. A person was created lohoy la'achrini, to benefit others. People do it in different ways. We heard a lot about what Chaim did, but the dimension of how Chaim did, it impressed me forever. It's indelible. Chaim's kibbud aim. His mother lived in a nursing home. I don't know when she moved there exactly. Chaim's concerned for mom. What could I do? What could I bring her? He wasn't telling us that he's going to visit his mother because he wanted us to know he's a big kibbud av aim. It was a tmimus, such a certain degree of an earnestkeit, almost childish excitement about a responsibility that I have to do because I want to. His hashkafa, his you want to call it his level of how he made priorities. I'll give a dogma. Chaim made those tapes that the Baruch said, and used to sell them in the Kailon, CDs. I don't know if there are many people here know what a CD is. People used to come in the Kailon, the new generation, it's old-fashioned. CDs. No, I didn't even know that. Cars don't even come with CDs till finally I got a car that didn't have a CD player. What do you do with them? And you think to yourself, yeah, you're right. Maybe they do look a little bit out of generation here. But there's 5 people that will buy them in a month, and they'll listen to that CD. That's 5 hours of learning. Then they'll lend it to somebody else who's still old-fashioned. Another 5 hours. They'll tell the word to another 6 people. There's hundreds of hours of limud Torah, old-fashioned Torah. But it doesn't pass in the modern generation to have old-fashioned stuff. Chaim didn't see it like that. Chaim saw a chair that was finished, was used, we throw it in the garbage. Chaim saw a seat. You can take the chair, take off the seat, and use it for Tisha B'Av. You'll stick a label on it. It won't say provided by Harvey Euzent. No, Chalila. Provided by Torah Life Institute. And he had delivered the chairs to various shuls all over the place. And the people who said it's ridiculous are the people sitting on it. Chaim didn't care. He didn't care. He brought them every year. And he picked them up afterwards. And he stored them who knows where. Only Chaim knows where he stores all that stuff that he collected. The nachas he had from all we call it the junk that he collected, when you needed that screw, he had it. Where did he get it? He took apart some other thing that someone took, and he saved the screw. He saved the little feet from the chairs, from the table, because one's going to break next week anyway, so we're going to need it. He saved it because he'd have nachas, someone would use it. And mechaber sabriyas doesn't only mean the people, It means the whole bria, the whole nivra, everything that Kodesh Baruch Hu put here. There's a cover, there's a chashivas for it. But lo machzik tivus alatzmei. He didn't need that cover. He didn't need that's what you do. There were so many things that Chaim did that people probably don't even know. But I'm just going to, in short, I just want to give you a story that happened, an incident that touches up Chaim. Chaim used to daven on the Mizrach, on the wall in the front of the kollel. Once there came a time, now a lot of people, by the way, I put in parentheses, Rabbi Yankel Leglinski has a whole story about the Mizrach, but it's not the place for it, you can imagine. Many people want to sit on the Mizrach. People pay money to sit there. People stand on their heads almost for the covet of sitting there. Chaim daven on the Mizrach, by the wall. Then, whatever the reasons are, things change and Chaim moved to the table behind. So Chaim tells me, he says, in Lederman Shul, Chaim has a tmimis and a pashtus that I sat on that wall. I davened in the front wall. Chaim Kanievsky didn't daven there. I did. You know why? Because I davened very long. And if I davened behind someone, I would inconvenience him because he wouldn't be able to take his 3 steps back after Shemon Esrei. So I found a seat that would inconvenience nobody. It can't be an important seat because Reb Chaim didn't sit there. So baffled by the whole concept. Baffled by the concept that people need to sit on a Mizrach. Or people need people to sit on a Mizrach bed in this case. Baruch didn't need to sit on the Mizrach. Chaim didn't understand it as, it's a covet. Someone was upset. Someone else was upset that Baruch couldn't sit on the Mizrach, so they had to make a hapshke. But Chaim didn't understand that. You do things that are good for people. You do things that are good for society. You do things that are good for Lahoyel Achrini. And you're not machzik tivus la'atzmecha. Why do you have to be a program? Why do you have to have your name? Chaim had no sense of malice, the concept of a backstabbing, the concept of doing it for more or bargaining. It didn't enter his mind, but it had to be done. Sometimes he paid for things out of his own pocket. The kollel needed whatever it was. He'd come and tell me, he went across town because the only place that had such a fan. He drove across town. I said, Chaim, so let me pay you for the gas and the time. He says, are you sure? Maybe Chaim, I'm paying you $55, $60. He was going to pay out of pocket. He didn't have any money. But there were many things. The tar that he bought to tar the seal, the roof, the broken roof, the design that someone has to go up there. Chaim has to go up there and tar the roof because it wasn't his job. He used to tar the parking lot also. Those holes in the parking lot, they wouldn't be if Chaim was here. He'd go and buy the tar and fill it up. In the middle of the night when no one would interfere with anybody's life. No one would know. He was a limud in doing what Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to do with the tmimus, or the pashtus, with an excitement and enthusiasm. When Chaim was taken out of the base medrash, I don't know if everybody appreciated what we lost. The dugma, the semel of ernst, honest, just what Rebbeinu Shalom wants. That musag, that demus, if we can just keep it alive, it can bring us to much madregas. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will tell us, this is chazu banai, this is my children, that they mishtachim mitzorah dilhoin, they forget about their own tzoros. Chaim had tzoros. He used to send me texts, and other people also. He has a question, why is this Lashon Zachar and this is Lashon Nekeva? He's learning Chumash Be'iyun. With a pashtus, what's going on? Why is this a Kometz? This one's a Pasach. Why? And always with a good vach, you and your family should have a good Shabbos. It's a good night tonight for Kiddush Levana. Forgot about his own tzoros. Forgot about it. It's not important. And what are they doing? By asking the chedvus dili. They're Isaac in being excited, enthusiastic. The chedvus dili. My chedva, the Kodesh Baruch Hu's chedva. If we can take that as a limit for ourselves, then our Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'm sure, will be la'amobis lanetzach macha Hashem elekim dimem al kolpanim. V'cherpas ama yasi. He'll take away the bizoyin that Klal Yisrael lives without all this, with all the trappings of the machzikin tivus al atzmein. We tell the bunch, look how good we are. So the Kodesh Baruch Hu, v'cherpas ama yasi. Me'al kol ha'aretz ki Hashem diber.
Rabbi Akiva Feinstein, Rav Menorah Park.
It's very hard to be maspid Chaim. He was such a great person. He was a friend. You had a personal connection with him. He wasn't just a person in shul. He wasn't just a worker. He wasn't just a learner. So on behalf of Menorah Park, I wanted to thank his family for sharing him with us and the community for sharing him with us. About a year or so, we were in this very room thinking about the patira of Mrs. Albaum. And we talked about how Hashem sent Mrs. Albaum to our campus. She was there because she was weaker, she needed the nursing, she needed the help. But Hashem didn't send her to the campus because she needed help. Hashem sent her to the campus because we needed help. We needed the chizuk and the inspiration. And so I believe it's exactly the same way with Harvey Euzent. His Rebbetzin took care of him at home, did the best she could, but it's clear that Hashem decided, rather dramatically, that he had to come to Menorah Park. But it became so clear what the purpose was. Hashem doesn't always reveal so easily his purposes, but I believe he really did with this situation. His disease was so complex and so scary and so difficult. But at that time, I dare say, I say so very cautiously, that there was a nechama in his disease, because every single thing that Chaim excelled at, the disease took away. His zrizas, his running to do things, his physicality, his quickness, his ability just to do whatever he wanted to do to help someone quickly, it was all taken away by this disease. As horrible as this was, to me, it was a comfort, because I believe Chaim could see that Hashem raised him up to give him an entirely new purpose. He had to take a whole new set of tools, a whole new set of challenges, and to make the most of him. And I think most of us have one challenge, the life we're given, and we have to live up to it. Chaim literally got multiple lives. He had the challenge of his first life when he could do a lot, and he had the challenge of his second life when he couldn't do so much. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about how he changed his toolkit completely in response to the challenges that Hashem gave him. His key in life was the three things: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. His avodah had to change. He couldn't be at the Mizrach Vant. He couldn't be in the shul. He couldn't be davening with the tzibor. So what do? You daven in your room with the siddur really quickly before the nurse brings you breakfast? No. If you're Harvey Euzent, you tell Menorah Park, I want the lights on 24/7 in the base medrash. I want the doors wide open, and I don't want anything bothering the shul. I don't want anything in my way. Sometimes there was a chair in the way. There was the engineering left something by mistake near the shul door. Chaim was, no way. That shul is my shul. And he would own the place, for lack of a better word. And I believe it was a special ownership. Because very sadly, because of COVID, the shul is not the same. We don't have the minyanim we used to have. The shul so lacked kedusha like it used to. But who brought it was Chaim. He would sit in the middle of the shul with his talus over himself and really, really daven like a malach. He wouldn't rush even though he had to go to the bathroom, or might have to go to the bathroom, or he was in pain. And I just want to tell you, the mitzvah of tefillin was such a dear mitzvah. And so many dear people in this room helped him with this mitzvah. Rabbi Goldberg, Rabbi Gershon, Kazeki, and others. Putting on tefillin with Chaim was unique. When you saw him put it on himself, he had many minhagim, he had many hakpadas that he held by. But in the nursing home, you would think he'd be a little loose, a little easygoing, make it quick, right? After all, everyone's in a hurry, right? Everyone's got to go to their next place. But if you put on tefillin with Chaim, no. His head had to be covered with 2 coverings. And none of the straps could twist. There had to be a certain seder. The tzitzis had to be in his hands. He had to be able to have a siddur close by. Nothing could be rushed. It had to be at the correct zman. It was so amazing. And I don't want to say anything improper, but I believe it's a kavod. When Chaim couldn't talk because he was in the middle of putting on tefillin, he had this grunt. It was a grunt he would not forget. It was a grunt that told you something was not right. And it was usually a kleinigkeit in the avodah of tefillin, but to him it was gigantic. But you felt like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. I don't know if I can do it again. But you were finished putting on the tefillin with him, and he gave you such a smile, such a beautiful joy. And he would give you a bracha. He would tell you something nice. He would help you, and you're like, oh, that was a big tircha. But oh my goodness, that was the most beautiful, enjoyable opportunity to help him. One of the things about Chaim was his tremendous joy that he had. I'm telling you, for the staff and for many people who came, it was an amazement this man was so happy. That big smile that we knew from Chaim, it never went away. It only got bigger. So many little things showed me that he was still very besimcha. When he would see his Rebbetzin, he would light up. He would be so happy. When it was Shavuos, he kept on hassling some of the people that he wanted to plant some flowers outside. Actually, I didn't know it was about Shavuos yet. But he had this little window with a screen. And in a nursing home, everything has a rule. The screens have to be locked. The flower pots have to be 6 inches from the window. There's a zillion rules. And not one of those rules would stop Chaim from having a flower pot in front of his window before Shavuos. Because he needed that flower pot. And when he got it, oh boy, was he so happy. He had survived bureaucracy, and he was Mekayim and Mitzvah in a beautiful way. Many of us shared times with him. His birthday celebration was wonderful. People came to visit him. And I just want to say one of the most pleasurable things about Chaim was to make him laugh. Is that I was scared to make him laugh because he had this horrible ALS and his lungs are all, and he would cough sometimes and he would make these weird noises. But when he would laugh like there was no limit. And I believe it hurt him. I don't know exactly what happened. But he would laugh and laugh and laugh, but then I knew it would hurt. But he would keep laughing. And you keep telling him jokes because he had such tremendous joy and happiness. We talked about his Torah, and his Torah was in a different level when he came to Menorah Park. He couldn't learn the same way, but nothing would stop him. He got this machine that is given to people with ALS. It's a machine where you use your eyes and you track things on the screen to make it talk for you. And then, there's a lot to set up, and it's pretty complicated. But one of the most important things about that machine was Chaim wanted to make sure that it was a keli for Torah. And certain people in this room helped him, and someone in New York helped him to have Torah put onto that machine. And I believe they had a conversation with Chaim where how much Torah do you want on that machine? Maybe you just need a few Mishnayos, you need a little bit of Chumash. He wanted so much Torah on that machine, it was too many gigabytes to fit on the zip drive, and we couldn't figure out how to upgrade the machine. And we told the IT people, and they thought it was the craziest story they've ever heard. And they wouldn't help us. So, another thing about the machine is Chaim didn't want to use that machine. He didn't want to use these talkers and these devices. Because when Chaim spoke to you, when he spoke Torah, he wanted you to hear his voice. He wanted it to be his efforts and his soul and his himself speaking out those things. And sometimes he wasn't understandable at all. And sometimes I wished he would just text me or write me or whatever. But everybody, he had to use his voice. And that was Chaim. Never, ever giving up. Never using crutches, even when everyone else told you to. One last thing, taking up his spirit of simcha, one of the things I thought was the cutest thing in the world was that Chaim didn't learn Torah just privately. He was a marbitz in Torah, and he did it in a rather unique way. Is that the Baruch Shalom made phones very loud. I don't know if you've ever turned up your phone to 100, but it could be pretty loud, that everyone can hear. So the typical day for Chaim was he started with Rav Zev Leff, and he started with other people on his phone. And he wouldn't turn it off when he came out the door. He wouldn't shut it down when he had an appointment. No, it was the entire place was bursting with Chaim's Torah. Because that's what he felt. He was so proud to be a Yid, so proud to play Torah. And also, I love the fact that he always wore his hat. He was in his wheelchair. Sometimes he had the pajama pants because he had no other way. But he had the white shirt and he had his Choshev hat in Menorah Park. And it was just such an incredible covered for, Ben Torah, like himself. There's so much more to say, but I just want to say, as the Rav said before, he was incredibly kind to others. Whenever I told him we had problems, whenever we needed to hire someone, he would always think of people. Sometimes his suggestions were not that solid, but he wanted to have something. He had a crazy idea for a solution, which I can never do, but he didn't want to come empty to a meeting. He didn't want to come empty to meet your problems. I saw him take care of his mother-in-law, in the most beautiful way. And those were very, very difficult situations. And he did so with such grace. And obviously he loved his dear Rebbetzin so much. And if I may say a quick story that she shared with me, in the Derech of Nechama, is that the theme of Chaim, like Rabbi Baruch said, we have to learn Torah for him, because he's always thinking of us. He always carries us in his worries and his concerns. So Mrs. Euzent, she had her cute little car, the orange one, and it was time to get a bigger one. And so she, of course, asked Chaim every moment for his advice. Chaim had to be brought to every conversation. The dealership knew all about Chaim and the importance of this and that. But the last thing that Chaim was able to do for his wife was something that thematically described him. After the whole deal was done and probably everything was worked out and the Haunted leadership had enough of this couple who, had a lot of particular concerns, Chaim said, you know what? My wife needs an automatic remote start. Because the winter's going to come, it's going to be cold, she should not have to come to a cold car and worry about it. And he was so mafpid about that, and his wife can tell you how amazing Siyata Shema came, and that thing happened very quickly. But that's how we remember Chaim, is that he was always looking out for the other person, no matter what. And the thing about the ALS, it never changed him one bit. It never bittered him. It never stopped him. It never slowed him down. And again, I just focus on the fact that he had a double bracha. He had a bracha living two lives. The life of a doer and the person who was the life of a challenger. And in every single life, he did so beautifully. So, it's a b'meilish yasher for all of us, b'olam avos hanetzach.
When I was speaking to the person who helps all the ALS patients in the Ohio, Cleveland area, Lisa Bruning, and she was talking about how Chaim was different. Other people got this dread of disease, and they took it and depressed them and brought them down. The happiness that Chaim just had, not just for himself, but everybody around it, it was just infusing the room with just happiness. And you just didn't understand. This is a person who got the most debilitating disease that one could think. And the simcha that he gives over to other people was just in a different realm. He's somebody who, till his last day, he just was thinking about how could he take care of his wife. He was a person in a wheelchair, in a nursing home, away from the world. His wife was in Cleveland Heights, but he was always trying to figure out situations. How can I help out my loving wife so much? Chaim was a man who lived on a different plane. He lived on a different level. From us, he did things his own way, but his way was a higher way. He was a man, he was an Olam Habatika person. Right now, normally it's hard to go from your body to the next life. But Chaim, his whole life was Olam Haba. There's not a difference between this world and the next world for him. Because that's what this world was about. Chaim was somebody who we learned lessons from. How to do chesed, how to learn Torah in the most pashida, pure state. If you look around the room today, who are his friends? Every single person in this room is a Ben Aliyah. These are the people that he gravitated to. These are the people that gravitated to him. He's a person that's going to have a perpetuation of his soul. Because he's somebody who, everybody in the room is a Ben Aliyah. And there are people that are going to get from him and live for him and perpetuate his soul forever. On behalf of the whole Cleveland community and everybody who's ever met Chaim, I want to ask Mechila, because I could assure you that we did not treat him with the respect, anything close. Forget about of who Chaim was. Anything close. Chaim was an Adam Chashiv. Rabbi Gerson always says, the Gemara says, that Olam Hafach Reisi, it's a backwards world. Who are Michabed? Who do we honor in this world? It's not the same people who really deserve honor. The person who deserved honor in this world was Reb Chaim Harvey Euzent. I'm just asking Mechila from the whole community to Chaim, because I know that we didn't give him the proper respect that was due to him. And just one more thing that I know Chaim would want is Hakar Satayv, a public Hakar Satayv, to the many people who went out of their ways to just go and be with Chaim for the last few years. To name is just, it's an amazing group community that went out, and all the time we're always associated and helped out Chaim. But just to name a few, the Bergers, the Landaus, Rabbi Elazar Sachs, Rabbi Moshe Resnick, and everybody who just went out, and Rabbi Shimon Gutman. And Chaim was so beloved to us all. And Chaim's actions is something that we're always going to learn from. And Amir Tzeh Hashem, we're going to grow from. He's with us. He'll always be with us. And now it's our job to perpetuate what he taught us on the pashtus of chesed and the pashtus in Torah. And Amir Tzeh Hashem, we could take these lessons and elevate his soul to the highest levels.
El Malay Rachamim, Shoichein, Bamiroimim, Hamtzei Menuchane Chayna, B'tzel Kanfei HaShechina, B'maloyis Kedai Shemetayrim, Kizoyar Haraki Amazirim, Es Nishmas Reb Chaim Rachmiel ben Reb Yaakov Moshe, Sholach Li Oilamoye, Bavor Shekol HaKol Mazkiri Nishmasoi, Began Eden Tehei Menuchasoi, Lochein Bala Rachamim, Yastireu B'Seiser K'nafav Li Oilamim, B'Yitzrar Chayim Es Nishmasoi, Adonai Hunachalasoi, V'yanuach Al Mishkavoi B'Shalayim V'naymar Amen.
The Kvura will be taking place at Beth Olam Cemetery, 25796 Chagrin Boulevard at the cross-section of Richmond. Shiva will be set by Mrs. Euzent at 3484 Berkeley Road until Sunday, July 24th, Monday through Thursday, 10 to 12, 3 to 5, 7 to 9, Friday, 10 to 12, 3 to 5, and Motzi Shabbos, 10:30 to 12.
That's her fault.
Want to go in my car? My car is there. Black car. The tractor's right there. Thank you.